Now imagine the economy is like a car. Sometimes it's moving too slowly and needs to speed up. Other times it's going too fast and starts overheating. So who sits behind the wheel? The answer is the government and the central bank. In today's lesson, we'll look at three main tools they use to steer the economy: fiscal policy, monetary policy, and supply side policy. By the end of this lesson, you'll understand how governments try to keep economies growing, prices stable, and people employed. Now, in the previous lesson, we looked at two major economic problems, inflation and unemployment. The obvious question is, what can governments actually do about them? Governments are constantly trying to manage the economy. Their main goals are to support economic growth, keep inflation under control, reduce unemployment, and maintain financial stability. To achieve these goals, economists usually talk about three main policy tools: fiscal policy, monetary policy, and supply side policy. Now let's look at each one. Let's start with fiscal policy. Fiscal policy refers to changes in government spending and taxation to influence the economy. Think of it as the government deciding how much to spend and how much tax to collect. There are two main types. First is expansionary fiscal policy. During a recession, governments may increase spending or reduce taxes. This puts more money into the economy and encourages people to spend more. The second is contractionary fiscal policy. If inflation is becoming too high, governments may reduce spending or increase taxes. This slows down demand and helps it bring inflation under control. So fiscal policy mainly works by influencing aggregate demand. Now, so how effective is fiscal policy? One major advantage is that it can have a powerful impact on the economy. Governments can also target support towards specific industries, regions, or households. And because governments are elected, fiscal decisions are often subject to democratic accountability. However, fiscal policy also has limitations. It often takes time to design and implement policies. Higher government spending may increase government debt, and political disagreements can delay important decisions. So while fiscal policy is powerful, it isn't always quick or easy to use. Now let's move on to monetary policy. Unlike fiscal policy, monetary policy is usually controlled by the central bank. Its main tool is the interest rate. Imagine you're thinking about buying a house. If interest rates are low, borrowing becomes cheaper. People are more likely to take out loans, buy homes, and spend money. Businesses are also more likely to invest. This helps stimulate economic growth. But if inflation becomes too high, the central bank may increase interest rates. Higher borrowing costs reduce spending and investment, helping to slow the economy and control inflation. So monetary policy mainly works by influencing borrowing and spending. But although monetary policy is an important tool, it also has several limitations. First, its effects are often slow. It can take months before changes in interest rates affect the wider economy. Second, when consumer confidence is very low, even lower interest rates may not encourage people to borrow. People may simply choose to save instead. Monetary policy can also increase inequality. People who own houses or shares often benefit when asset prices rise. Finally, keeping interest rates very low for too long can contribute to asset price bubbles, where house prices or stock markets become unsustainably expensive. So interest rates are powerful, but they're not a perfect solution. Now, the third tool is supply side policy. Unlike fiscal and monetary policy, which mainly affect demand, supply side policies focus on increasing the economy's productive capacity. In simple terms, they help the economy produce more goods and services in the future. Examples include investing in education and training, building better infrastructure, and offering tax incentives for businesses to invest, and reducing unnecessary regulations. These policies usually take longer to have an effect, but they can increase productivity and support long-term economic growth. Now, here's something economists pay a lot of attention to. These policies don't work independently, they often interact. Imagine the government is increasing spending to stimulate growth. At the same time, the central bank is raising interest rates to reduce inflation. These two policies are working against each other. That's why policy coordination is so important. Governments must balance short term goals like reducing unemployment with long-term goals, like increasing productivity and maintaining financial stability. Poor coordination can create unnecessary instability in the economy. Now, let's finish with one familiar example, education. Investment in education is a classic supply side policy. When governments fund schools, universities, and training programs, they're investing in human capital. A more skilled workforce is generally more productive, more innovative, and better prepared for changes in technology. Over time, this can increase economic growth and reduce structural unemployment. Of course, education spending must be funded through taxation or borrowing. So even beneficial policies involve trade-offs between today's costs and tomorrow's benefits. It's another reminder that economic policy is all about making choices. Now, so far, we've focused mainly on managing the domestic economy, but countries don't exist in isolation. In the next lesson, we'll explore international trade and globalization and discover how countries benefit from trading with one another and the challenges that come with it. Now let's recap today's lessons. Governments have three main tools for managing the economy. Fiscal policy uses government spending and taxation to influence demand. Monetary policy uses interest rates to influence borrowing, spending, and inflation. Supply side policy improves productivity and supports long-term growth. Most importantly, these policies need to work together. Good economic management isn't about choosing one policy, it's about finding the right combination to achieve stable, sustainable growth. Thank you very much.